Christmas dinner was supposed to feel warm, familiar, safe. Instead, the moment my grandfather slammed his hand down on the table, the entire room froze. I was halfway through lifting my fork, a piece of turkey trembling at the edge, when his voice cut through the laughter like a blade. "Why is a complete stranger running the cold storage and logistics company in Texas that I bought for my granddaughter?" Every sound died instantly. Just seconds earlier, there had been jokes, glasses clinking, the smell of gingerbread and roasted meat filling the house. Now, nothing. My grandfather, Sidney, sat at the head of the table, his coat still draped over the chair from his long trip back. His palm had struck the wood so hard the wine glasses rattled. His eyes were locked straight across the table. He repeated it, slower this time, sharper. "The company I purchased and placed in her name 4 years ago. Why is it under someone else's control?" I lowered my fork slowly. I widened my eyes, letting confusion wash over my face. Inside, my heart was racing, but my voice came out thin and unsteady, exactly how I wanted it. "Grandpa, what are you talking about? I don't even own a car. I barely have savings. How could I own a company?" The silence after that felt heavy enough to crush my chest. My father's hand tightened around the carving knife, his knuckles turning white. My mother's face drained of color. My younger brother, Nolan, exchanged a quick look with his wife, Claire, sharp and nervous. No one spoke. Grandpa leaned forward slightly and explained that a few weeks earlier, an old business partner had called him by mistake. The man thought Grandpa was still overseeing the company. He congratulated him on the new owner, a man named Daniel Price, who was apparently running operations smoothly and expanding contracts. I whispered the name like I was tasting something unfamiliar. Daniel Price. I've never heard that name before. On the inside, my thoughts were moving fast, but outwardly I stayed still. I watched their faces, the way my father avoided eye contact, the way my mother pressed her lips together too tightly. The tension thickened with every breath. And then the doorbell rang. No one moved at first. The sound echoed through the house, sharp and wrong. Christmas music was still playing softly somewhere in the background, mocking the moment. Grandpa didn't look surprised. He simply nodded toward the hallway. Before anyone could stop it, the door opened, and 2 police officers stepped inside. But that moment, the exact second everything cracked open, was only the beginning. The family stayed frozen as if the question itself had pinned us in place. Grandpa reached into his briefcase and pulled out a thick folder, the kind that carried weight even before it was opened. He slid it across the table and tapped a specific line. There it was in black and white. Daniel Price listed as the primary owner of the cold storage and logistics company in Texas. My brother leaned forward immediately, his face flushing as he scanned the page. He laughed, a short forced sound, and shook his head. It had to be a mistake. Probably another company with a similar name. Texas was huge, after all. My mother placed her hand gently on Grandpa's arm and smiled too widely. She said he must be exhausted from traveling, that jet lag could make anyone mix things up. My father nodded, continuing to slice turkey no one was eating, saying this wasn't the time for business talk. It was Christmas. I sat quietly, letting confusion settle over my face like a mask. When I spoke, my voice carried just enough hurt to feel real. I told them how the last 4 years after graduation had been nothing but survival. How I lived in a tiny apartment outside Houston where the air conditioning barely worked in summer. How there were months when instant noodles were dinner, stretched with whatever vegetables I could afford. One Christmas, I said softly, I bought myself a box of off-brand cookies from the dollar store because that's all I had left after rent. I wrapped them in old newspaper because I couldn't afford gift paper. I looked around the table and asked why, if a company had really been in my name all this time, no one had ever told me. My voice cracked. Just a little. Grandpa continued explaining the call. The partner had talked about warehouse expansions, upgraded refrigeration units, new trucking routes. He spoke like someone deeply involved, confident in the new leadership. My brother muttered something about crossed emails and business misunderstandings. Claire stayed quiet, pushing food around her plate without lifting her eyes. My father tried again to change the subject, commenting on dessert. My mother poured water into glasses no one touched. I leaned back, folding my arms, watching the excuses stack on top of each other. They all sounded reasonable. They all avoided the same thing. Grandpa didn't argue yet. He just let the documents sit there. Proof no one could quite explain away. Eventually, my father sighed and set the knife down. He spoke carefully, like someone explaining something obvious to a child. He reminded everyone that 4 years ago, Grandpa had placed the company in my name as a gift for my future. But I had been young, inexperienced. Running a business that large could have destroyed me. So the family stepped in. Temporarily. My mother picked up seamlessly, saying they were protecting me. Shielding me from stress, from bad partners, from mistakes that could bankrupt everything. My brother nodded along, calling it a collective decision made out of love. I leaned forward and asked what temporary meant. Had they made decisions without me? Signed papers? Why keep me completely in the dark? They reassured me. It was just oversight. Routine management. Nothing permanent. Grandpa interrupted quietly. He pointed again to the paperwork. This wasn't oversight. This was a full ownership transfer. My father suggested it was for tax reasons. My mother mentioned liability structures. My brother called it a clerical error. I asked how a clerical error ended with someone else listed as owner. No one answered directly. The room felt smaller by the second. The Christmas lights blinked behind them, bright and hollow. Plates sat untouched. Voices overlapped, explanations repeating in circles. Then Grandpa asked my brother a simple question. Had he signed anything related to the company over the past few years? My brother hesitated, then admitted he'd signed a few limited authorization papers. Nothing serious. Just small things. Grandpa nodded and reached for his phone. He made one call and said, calmly, to come inside. When the door opened again, it wasn't the police this time. It was his lawyer. And that was when the real unraveling began. Grandpa's lawyer walked in like he belonged there, calm and deliberate, carrying a briefcase that looked heavier than it should have been. He placed it gently on the table, right between the half-eaten dishes and the untouched dessert. The latches clicked open, one after the other, sharp in the quiet room. He started with a single document. An authorization form. My authorization form. Or at least that was what it claimed to be. He pointed to the date first, explaining that according to travel records, I had been several hours away in Austin that day, interviewing for entry-level positions. Then he showed enlarged copies of the signature. Subtle differences. The curves were off. The pressure inconsistent. It looked close enough to pass at a glance, but wrong once you knew what to look for. My father cleared his throat and said copies often looked different when reprinted. My mother added that offices reissued paperwork all the time. My brother jumped in quickly, blaming notary services and rushed clerks. The lawyer didn't argue. He simply laid out the next piece. Printer forensics. Tiny yellow tracking dots embedded by office machines. They showed the document had been printed months later than the date it claimed to be signed. My mother's smile started to shake. My father adjusted his collar. My brother rubbed the back of his neck. I asked quietly what that meant for the company. Who actually controlled the warehouses and contracts right now? That opened the floodgates. They rushed to explain. Oversight. Efficiency. Growth phases. It was all temporary. Everything would come back to me eventually. The lawyer calmly explained Texas statutes. Proxies had limits. Power of attorney didn't allow ownership transfer without explicit consent. No one said the word sale. They kept dancing around it. Then the lawyer slid out the next set of papers. Emails. Anonymous messages sent to companies I had applied to right out of college. Recruiters. Hiring managers. Each email painted me as unreliable, dramatic, someone who abandoned projects midstream. Not worth the risk. The headers told the story. Temporary email accounts, yes. But the IP address traced back to this house. My brother spun toward my mother, his voice sharp. He asked why she had pushed him to send those messages. Why she said it was necessary to keep me from taking jobs too far away. Claire leaned forward, her voice trembling as she admitted she had seen drafts saved on my brother's laptop. She said she never approved of it. She said she thought it was wrong. My father raised his hands, trying to calm everyone. He said they were only trying to guide me toward safer choices. Closer to home. Somewhere family could help if things went wrong. My mother's composure broke. Tears filled her eyes as she said she was scared. Scared I'd move somewhere far away and struggle alone. She said she just wanted to protect me. My brother pushed back, saying he felt pressured. That he didn't like doing it, but kept being told it was for my own good. Claire shook her head, reminding him how confident he sounded back then. How he said it was better this way. I stayed quiet, absorbing every word. Every deflection. Every attempt to shift blame sideways. The lawyer arranged the emails by date. The pattern was obvious. Each rejection lined up with moments when I was close to landing something better. Something independent. Grandpa watched without speaking. His silence was louder than all of them combined. The arguing slowed, exhaustion creeping in. No one fully admitted anything. They just justified it from every angle. That's when Grandpa raised his hand. The room went completely silent. He spoke slowly, his voice steady and cold. He said that months ago, when the irregularities first surfaced, he had updated his will. Completely. The lawyer slid another document across the table. Notarized. Witnessed. Official. Every asset that had once been earmarked for my parents, my brother, even Claire, was gone. Everything now flowed directly to me. My mother let out a small sound, like the air had been knocked from her lungs. The lawyer didn't pause. He moved to the final evidence. Side-by-side signature comparisons. The transfer documents selling the company to Daniel Price. The same curls. The same pen lifts. A near-perfect match to my brother's known handwriting. Financial records followed. Wire transfers. Large ones. From the buyer into an account jointly controlled by my parents. My brother's shoulders sagged. He finally spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. He admitted it. All of it. They had sold the company. They needed the money. My father's construction business was collapsing under debt. Foreclosure was coming. They panicked. Claire had introduced them to the buyer. She insisted she never forged anything. She just made the connection. My mother covered her mouth, sobbing. My father stared at the table like it might open up and swallow him. Grandpa spoke again, calm but final. He said they had stolen from my future while pretending it was protection. The lawyer explained the legal consequences without emotion. Forgery. Fraud. Asset misrepresentation. Then there was a knock at the door. This time, Grandpa nodded before anyone could react. 2 officers stepped inside, professional and controlled. They explained that a complaint had already been filed. Evidence reviewed. This was no longer a family discussion. Summons were handed out. First to my brother. Then to my father. My mother broke down completely. Claire clutched my brother's arm, begging the officers to give them time, to let us handle it privately. I waited until the officers finished. Then I spoke. I told them they had chosen themselves over me years ago. I wasn't choosing punishment. I was choosing distance. The officers left quietly, paperwork in hand. The house felt hollow after that. Christmas music still playing somewhere, painfully out of place. My mother reached for me, whispering apologies. My father echoed them weakly. I didn't respond. That night didn't end with shouting or closure. It ended with silence. And the long road that followed was even harder. The weeks after Christmas blurred into a grind I hadn't anticipated. Legal proceedings moved slowly, almost torturously. Depositions, discovery, court appearances in downtown Houston, each day felt like a marathon with fluorescent lights burning overhead and stacks of documents spread across the table. I sat through every questioning session, recounting timelines I knew by heart, watching as lawyers tried to poke holes while I maintained a steady, neutral front. Nights were sleepless, filled with careful review of affidavits, expert reports, and forensic evidence. I wondered constantly whether the details would hold up, whether all the small anomalies my grandfather's lawyer had uncovered would be enough to counter the defense's claiming clerical errors or good faith. Daniel Price's legal team argued he had bought the company in reasonable belief that the title was valid. That meant the settlement would cover only partial restitution, far short of the full value of the business that had been taken from me. When the judge finally issued the ruling, it was structured, careful, methodical. Payments would be made in installments, monitored closely to ensure compliance. Enough to rebuild, but not enough to fully reclaim the years stolen from me. Meanwhile, my former family's world unraveled. Dad's construction business collapsed under the weight of debts and new legal fees, forcing liquidation that destroyed decades of work and reputation. My parents sold their suburban home, downsizing to a modest rental apartment where memories of holidays past felt tainted. My brother faced probation and restitution obligations, draining his finances further. Claire, exhausted and disillusioned, filed for divorce and returned to her hometown, distancing herself from the fallout that had engulfed our family. I, on the other hand, used every dollar of the settlement to launch a new logistics venture. Smaller, yes, but focused, flexible, and built on my terms. I leased cold storage units across Houston, targeting local producers, markets, restaurants needing overflow capacity. The first months were brutal. Clients were hesitant. Cold calls often ended in rejection. I set up trade show booths, offered discounts to build trust, and stretched every cent to cover warehouse leases, refrigerated trailers, and the few employees I could hire. became a way to transform personal hardship into collective benefit. Each resolved case reinforced the value of vigilance, careful action, and integrity. Witnessing others reclaim control strengthened my own sense of justice and purpose. Grandpa often reminded me that resilience, patience, and ethical leadership matter more than inherited privilege. The company's growth, community contributions, and personal stability exemplified the power of perseverance and integrity. Reflection on the journey reinforced that true success is measured not only in financial terms, but in independence, ethical practice, and meaningful connections built on trust. Life continued, shaped by deliberate choices, careful planning, and lessons learned from betrayal. Independence, integrity, and personal growth became the foundation of every decision. Boundaries protected future stability, while ethical leadership created lasting impact. Holidays were celebrated with awareness and gratitude, milestones recognized with reflection rather than obligation, and the legacy built was one of resilience, purpose, and authenticity. From the modest office of my logistics company in Texas, I had rebuilt everything that had been taken from me. The business thrived. Community ties strengthened. Independence and financial security solidified. Grandpa remained a steady guide, offering wisdom without interference. Each day confirmed that true family is chosen through respect and loyalty, not simply inherited by blood. Every decision reinforced that life rebuilt on solid foundations, with integrity and self-reliance, carries far greater value than any inheritance lost or misused. The story of that Christmas night, once a symbol of shock and betrayal, became a reference point for reflection and growth. Boundaries, vigilance, and self-preservation shaped my personal and professional life. Helping others navigate similar challenges became a source of fulfillment. Resilience, independence, and ethical leadership proved stronger than deception and greed. From pain arose purpose, and from betrayal emerged a future defined not by the failures of others, but by deliberate, principled action. The journey taught me that blood relation carries no guarantee of loyalty. Protection begins internally. Boundaries are essential. Forgiveness is only meaningful when earned. And most importantly, life rebuilt on integrity and self-reliance allows for growth, security, and meaningful connection beyond the shadows of betrayal.